Hello, my student. Today I'm going to explain land law. The topic is the right to fair compensation, transparency in land acquisition, rehabilitation, Resettlement Act 2013. Okay, we can call Land Acquisition 2013 Act also. So this act we have got from Indian Parliament, and this act has been replaced the Land Acquisition Act 1894. That means already we had Land Acquisition Act 1894. So we can say before passing this act, that means 2013 act, right? Land givers, yeah, land owners were often exploited to surrender their land for poor compensation, yeah, sometimes no compensation. Only on the face of the development, land was being taken away from the landowners, and there was no systematically legislation to protect the right of the landowners. So because of that, this Land Acquisition Act 2013 has been included to enable the farmers, to enable the landowners who are socially, economically, right, weak, and who lost their land. Okay, who lost their land, they should get at least fair compensation, at least the market value, right? Because they are giving their land to the private companies, to the government, so they should get the fair compensation now. So because of that, the act has provisions. The present act, I'm talking about the present act 2013, this act has provisions to provide fair compensation to those whose land is taken away, and it also brings transparency to the process of acquisition of land to set up factories, building projects, and also it assures the rehabilitation of those affected, isn't it? So this land acquisition and resettlement bill was introduced in Lok Sabha on 7th September 2011. Okay, the bill then received the assent of the President of India, Pranab Mukherjee, on 27th September 2013, and this act came into force from 1st January 2014. Okay, and in previous record, I have just stated about the introduction, right? Like why this act we have got 2013. We have got this act because we wanted to bring a transparency. We wanted to provide a fair compensation to those farmers, to those landowners whose land is taken away, because earlier there was an act called as Land Acquisition Act 1894. It was not providing any compensation on the face of the development. They used to take the land, and the poor people and the poor farmers used to get exploited, right? Because of this 2013 Land Acquisition Act, what we call Land Acquisition Act 2013, Laura Act, has been included just to provide fair compensation. Not only providing fair compensation, they have to provide the inbuilt rehabilitation, resettlement. Got it? They have to get all the farmers, especially landowners whose land has been taken away, to build a project, to build a factories, to build a like central government projects, yeah, state government projects, yeah, private companies like Ambani's, Mittal. These people want to take up, they will buy the land from the farmers and they'll construct a big projects. So when they are constructing, then they have to pay the good compensation. That is what this act is highlighting. So all acquisition requires rehabilitation, resettlement to be provided to the people affected by the acquisition, right? And remember one more thing, the compensation for the owners of the acquired land, right, shall be 4 times the market value in case of the rural areas and twice market value in case of urban areas. So earlier act was silent. Land Acquisition Act 1894 was completely silent on this, but now according to the 2013 Land Acquisition Act, the compensation for the landowners if they acquire the land shall be a 4 times market value if it is situated in rural areas, and when it is situated in urban areas, their land, especially their land, right, so it must be a market value, twice of market value they have to give the compensation, then they can acquire the land from the landowners, right. And another point is, in case of acquisition of land for use by private companies, underline private companies, that means consent of 80%, right, of the landowners will be required. Out of 100, 80% of the consent of the landowners required. And however, no such consent is required in case of government, right. If the government want to build up any project, if they acquire any land, then there is no consent of any owners. The consent cannot be taken, the consent is not needed. But whereas if the private companies acquire the land from the owners, then 80% of the consent is required, right. So this is one of the amendment has been taken place in the Land Acquisition Act 2013, right. And this act shall not apply to the acquisition under 16 existing legislation, which includes Special Economic Zone Act 2005. You know very well, Special Economic Zone Act 2005, it is only dedicated to construct the big companies, MNCs, just to attract the foreign investors, just to build up the GDP. So in that area this act is not applicable, and in Atomic Energy Act 1962 it is not applicable. So 16 areas this act will not applicable, otherwise this act is applicable, right. This is the highlight or silent features we can say. So one is, if any private companies, if they wanted to acquire the land from the landowners, then 80% of the consent is needed. In case of the government, it is not at all needed. And compensation of the owners, if their land is situated in rural area, it shall be 4 times the market value. If the land is situated in urban area, then it will be 2 times the market value. Got it? This is all about the introduction. This is all about the silent features and why, even though we have the Land Acquisition Act, right, that is 1894, but still it has been repealed. Why it has been replaced, why it has been repealed, already I said, right, because of the no compensation, because of the poor compensation, and owners have been exploited, and right, and there were no habilitation, no resettlement. But now this act has been provided fair compensation, fair rehabilitation and resettlement procedure, and also when they take up the land from the owners, how the compensation should be, 4 times in rural areas, 2 times in urban areas, and also consent is required 80% in case of private companies, and consent is not required in case of government companies. And this act is not applicable to 16 areas, right. So this is all about the silent features of the what we can say, right to fair compensation and transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation, Resettlement Act 2013. Thank you.